So, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Turn 5 podcast with myself, Ben, and Nia. It's the third week? I can't remember anymore.
Can
It's another week of the summer break. So, we're here with random content. Yeah.
announcements.
Continuing on from last week's stat comparison of Red Bull and Mercedes. We've got four more teams that have had their stat comparisons published. So we're going to kick things off with Alpine. So Esteban Ocon versus Pierre Gasly. In the race, Esteban Ocon wins 5-4. Who do you think's done better in qualifying?
Esteban.
I completely forgot whose teammate was for a second.
I just said Ocon versus Gasly.
I know.
So who do you think's done better?
Ocon.
It's a tie, 6-6. Get pranked. Ocon beats out Gasly on points, 35-22. Ocon has had one podium, Gasly has not. The best race finish.
Podium?
What?
Where
Did you
was
ask
it?
when did Ocon?
Yeah, when did Ocon
Monaco.
go? Oh, yeah.
It was Monaco. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a big podium. Best race finish, obviously third for Ocon. Seventh for Gasly. Highest grid position, third for Ocon. And fifth for Gasly. And this is probably the most damning stat for the Alpine team. Ocon has had 4 DNFs and Gasly has had 3. That's a big ouch. Considering last time we had Red Bull, who haven't had a single DNF, and Mercedes, who have had like 1. Yeah, that's not great reading after 12 rounds to have 7 DNFs.
Although,
I mean, Australia was kind of, they took each other out.
and then you think of Hungary as well when they both got taken out.
Yeah, okay. Then that one was sort of beyond their control, but still. It's not a great reading. Next up, we have McLaren. Obviously, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. So, guys, who's done better in the race? Who's winning that one?
Lando.
It's Lando, 9-3.
Wow.
Who's done better in qualifying?
Lando.
No.
Lando, it's 10-2. Lando has funny number points, and Oscar has 34 points. Lando has 2 podiums. Oscar hasn't scored one yet, but did get a sprint medal thing.
Look how we say that for Piastri, for Gasly, nothing.
Oh, yeah, I suppose, yeah. I completely forgot about Gasly's one, I'm not going to lie. Best race finish, Lando second, Oscar fourth. Highest grid position, Lando second, Oscar third. Lando has had no DNFs and Oscar has had 2.
That's pretty good so far for his first season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's getting whitewashed, but
yeah, the stats sort of hide the qualifying one in particular. Sort of makes it look bad, but it's the delta that you need to be looking at, really, isn't it? Sort of the average gap between the drivers, and I'd say on average he's been closer than Danny was. So
yeah,
and you also got to
within
look
2
at
tenths or so.
what positions they actually were as well.
yeah, exactly.
Because it just says that Lando's got higher positions in qualifying.
Yeah.
But they could be right next to each other. But we don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Ferrari. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. This is probably, in most of the stats, the most even one. In the race, Charles wins 7-5. In qualifying, Charles wins 8-4. Points, Charles has 99 and Carlos has 92. Pretty close. And yet, Charles has 3 podiums and Carlos has none. Best race finish for Charles is 2nd, for Carlos is 4th. Highest grid position for Charles is 1st, and for Carlos is 2nd. But Charles has had 2 DNFs and Carlos has only had 1.
Did Carlos get 4th?
You're asking too much of my memory. And do you know what the final team we've got for this week is? Aston Martin.
Well, I wonder what this is going to look like.
In the race, Fernando Alonso beat Lance Stroll 11-1. In qualifying, Fernando Alonso beat Lance Stroll 10-2. In the points, and this is probably the biggest indication of it, Fernando Alonso has 149, Lance Stroll has 47. Podiums, Alonso has 6, Lance has none. Best race finish, 2nd for Alonso, 4th for Lance. Highest grid position, 2nd for Alonso and 5th for Lance. And Alonso's had no DNFs and Lance has only had 1. Yeah, 102 point gap. And 6 podium difference.
Stroll did have broken wrists or something going into the season, so...
Yeah, but equally, if you're not fully fit, don't drive.
Well, I'd say don't drive at all, really. But...
He's got the second half of the season to try and improve. Otherwise, I'd say, you know...
He's keeping his seat for next year.
This just highlights it. He's being taken to school by a man that's probably almost twice his age.
That and is still one of the best drivers on the grid.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Age is just a number.
Which
Pierre says with his 18-year-old girlfriend.
Oh, that's who said who?
Pierre's girlfriend is like 18, 19, and he's like 20.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoa.
Fun fact.
I wouldn't say fun fact.
Moving swiftly onwards.
Accusations.
The 2024 driver lineup graphic has been produced.
Before you go on to that,
oh god,
I found Carlos's 4th place.
Oh,
and it was at Bahrain, and Charles broke down, obviously, so he would have been in front of him.
Right.
So
nice. Yeah, the 2024 driver lineup graphic's been released. So obviously this is drivers that have signed a contract that has a expiry date for the end of 2024 or beyond. But obviously with certain ones of these, that's probably subject to change. So Red Bull, both of their drivers are retained for next season, according to the currently known contracts. Mercedes have an opening. Only George Russell actually has a firm contract in place. Obviously, they're trying to get Lewis to sign an extension, but it's whether Lewis wants to hang around or not. That's up to him.
For more than like another 3 years.
Well, yeah. Maybe, I think if I was Toto, I'd just do it like one at a time. Just 1 year extensions. If he wants to, then, just another year. Just give it a go.
That's what they did with Valtteri, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, Aston Martin, both of their drivers are retained. Ferrari have both of their drivers. McLaren have both of their drivers. And Alpine have both of their drivers. Williams have the services of Alex Albon. The second seat is open. as it currently stands. And Alfa Romeo, which will probably be under a different name next year as the Alfa Romeo sponsorship expires at the end of this season, have Valtteri Bottas, but no second driver. And both...
How long was Zhou's contract? 2 years?
Yeah, I
No,
think so.
well,
Maybe he'll sign another one. Who knows? He's been doing all right. I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised if he signs on. So,
I think you would, yeah.
but both Haas seats and both AlphaTauri seats are currently vacant. So, Gunther's got some more phone calls to make. So, it could be interesting.
You'd expect Sonoda to sign on with AlphaTauri still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're Williams, could you have a look?
I mean, you've already pinched one Red Bull driver in the form of Albon,
Yeah.
so make
But
a team of it, you know?
Yuki's
Make
there
it a
'cause
third
of
Red Bull team.
Yuki's there because of Honda and not Red Bull.
True.
So
Well, he's there because of
Martin-
both, so
yeah, but he was in the Honda Dream project,
yeah.
not the Red Bull Academy. So it's like,
It's an interesting one. I could see it going both ways, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if AlphaTauri just retain his services, purely because junior drivers aren't really doing that hot right now.
no, I can't think of
Yes.
any who are like the top of F2s.
Liam
Yeah.
and Owasa, really, isn't it?
Yeah, Liam Lawson and Iwasa.
Iwasa's not doing too bad.
Depends who has the super license points.
Exactly, yeah.
Lawson. does.
Lawson's in the Super
Super
Formula.
Super Formula in
Yeah,
Japan.
Super Formula. Yeah.
But it just depends whether he has super license points as well. So I don't know if he does.
I can't remember what
I think
position
he
he
does.
finished, but if he was in the top 3, then he automatically gets one, doesn't he? And then
Yeah,
below that,
Iwasa's-
it gets a load anyway.
Iwasa is currently P3 in the standing.
Okay, so he would automatically
Lawson.
get a super license.
Lawson got third in F2 last year.
So he's got one. So
It could be him. And
they have
always
options
been-
then,
Yeah.
but it's whichever one they want to actually pursue, or none of them. Just so, but I mean, it was always the way when Dietrich was around. Dietrich Mateschitz was always very keen to promote the academy, so it was actually like a route to Formula One and not just for show, rather than just
And like it's for
Going
showing
and-
money.
yeah, rather than just like going and poaching talent from other teams. They actually bring them through to like fruition. He was very keen on that, and I'm sure, to be honest, they'll probably just keep that going. It's been successful for them in the past. I mean, Danny Rick was one of the better drivers, and they signed him up. Max
Science as well.
Verstappen has been produced. Carlos Sainz came through the system.
There's a couple.
Seb
drivers-
Vettel.
Yeah. There's a couple Formula
Could
E
be, yeah,
drivers
to
as
an
well
extent.
who are Formula E world champions as well.
Yeah. So, it's been a successful program for, it's not even really been around 20 years sort of thing. And we've produced a 4-time back-to-back world champion and a
Many race
3-time pending
Yeah.
back-to-back world champion. So,
That could be a lot worse as well. Go on to be about 5-time back-to-back.
but hey, I mean, it's incredible how successful it has been in such a short space of time. But it also really highlights the fact that the other teams don't really have the same sort of level of success
Yeah.
with their academies.
The only academy I can think of that's at the same level is Ferrari.
Yeah, but
But it's
where was the
still
last time Ferrari produced a world champion?
such a good point. And the last one they brought up was Mick Schumacher. Look where he is now.
Yeah.
The only one I can think of is Lewis with McLaren.
Mm.
But then he only had one success at McLaren.
Yeah.
It was a Mercedes, so
I was gonna say, I mean, George came through Mercedes route, didn't he?
yeah. You could maybe say McLaren because they have Mika Hakkinen as well. And Kimi.
Kimi was a bit of a snipe because he just got a test and they were like, he's quick. What? Put him in. Go. Sign a contract, boy.
So what? So it went from McLaren and now it's the Red Bull Academy.
Yeah. So. But yeah, I mean, complete respect for them to actually put the faith in the young ones and get them there, you know?
It just seems now, once they get there, they don't give them a lot of support still. Like,
Yeah. That seems to be the thing.
Nick was Mercedes one, but like he was still a young Formula One driver. So, but they gave him no support and kicked about halfway. So it's like.
But it's more. You just look towards Gasly, don't you? Really.
I feel like Nick got a sort of the rougher end of the stick because he wasn't Red Bull Academy.
Yeah, could have also been.
He was supposed to turn up and be more of a finished article than the junior drivers of past. Like, look at Iwasa's first. Look at Yuki's first season. Very prone to error, lots of incidents. If that had been Nick De Vries, we would have been very highly critical of it, considering that Nick had won Formula 2 and then gone on to be Formula E world champion. And he's like, what, 27? He should, like, the amount of stuff the amount of driving he's done, he should have been a more finished article.
But again, it's been so many years he's been out of Formula 2.
Yeah.
It's been like 4 years, 5 years
Yeah,
since
it's
he was out of Formula
2019.
2. And then he went to Formula E, which is very different racing, very different cars. It's still circuit racing, kind of, but they're very different. So obviously he got used to that. And then Formula 2 is exactly like Formula 1, so it's like...
But then you look at Yuki's trajectory and it was like Formula 4 Asia, Formula 3, Formula 2, Formula 1. Each time it was just a season.
Yeah.
And that kind of explains why he was so rough when he got to Formula 1. Because he hadn't... Lots of other drivers take 2 years in each sort of category. You occasionally get ones that go F3 debut season, then F2, you know? We've seen it before with the guys that come in and win in their debut season. Yeah, exactly.
And I think Lando for a lot of his seasons.
Not sure on Lando, but I know Oscar did.
He didn't win F2, I know that, but for a lot of them he did win.
But like Mick Schumacher's a great example of a driver that he had his debut season, his rookie season. And then in the second year, he went on and won. Then he got moved up to Formula 2. Debut season, nothing amazing. Second season, won. And, you know, it's... I'd say Mick's racecraft was better in his first season than Yuki's was. In terms of, like, yes, Mick still made errors, but he was in a hat. And Yuki made a lot of errors as well. But in terms of racecraft, I think Mick had that advantage.
I'd also kind of say Mick sort of had... It's not an advantage, because the car's so slow that it's just back of the grid every race. But it just means that you could have a cleaner race
Yeah.
because no one's around you other than Mazepin, who's a minute behind,
Yes.
or span
So
it into
you got
the
no
wall.
one around you.
Ben, did you want to have your rant?
But yeah, actually back to Mick for a minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fine.
Unless it's Saudi Arabia, in which that he does spin and crash.
Okay, yeah, but that was qualifying, and he was pushing.
And in the race in 2021,
Okay, yeah, fine.
2 years on the trot, he crashed at Saudi Arabia.
It's a rubbish circuit. That's all I'm gonna say.
So yeah, on to Gran Turismo. The first game that I ever owned was Gran Turismo 4. And they've recently released a film about the GT Academy that was on telly about a decade ago, 12 years ago or something. It was on ITV. And
I didn't
it's
see
the
that.
story of what, when it came out on ITV?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I don't know.
Shocking. It's the story of Jan Mardenborough, who won GT Academy and then went on to get a podium at Le Mans. And it was a good film, but there's very little annoyances in it. And that is the fact that at the start, we go to the start of GT Academy, we go to Silverstone, but that Silverstone looks oddly like Hungary backwards. Oh, it's because it is Hungary backwards. Yeah. Right, okay. And then, and then at the end of the film, you know, it finishes at Le Mans, but that straight looks oddly like Hungary. I don't think Le Mans starts with a downhill right hairpin,
Oh,
but
my
this one
God.
does.
Yes.
The worst thing about it is the fact that parts of Le Mans they've actually like CGI'd the straight. So do you know on the pitch, like the back of massive long straight when
Yeah,
in Forza you see the McDonald's,
the Mulsanne straight. Yeah.
they've actually CGI'd parts of that, so it actually looks like it. But then, like the final scene where you watch him get a podium at like the last lap, last corner, is just the left right hairpins at Hungary, and then you're like, why? It's so infuriating. It was so like obvious it is Hungary. Like, just show him just overtaking on a straight instead and CGI it. I don't care. Don't show Hungary.
That's tragic. That is actually tragic.
The fact that it just says like you have the little text come up, Le Mans. That's Hungary, mate. So where you got that from? And the worst thing, I don't even think Hungary's in the Gran Turismo game. That's another thing as well. Right, so this was all a decade ago. And they show him playing and invite to the GT Academy. He's playing Gran Turismo 7. And this was based 10 years ago.
Don't
and he's
think
got
that
a
came
Fanatec.
out then.
Yeah, and he's got like a proper Fanatec direct drive wheel. It's like, what? It's really like it's such a little annoyances to what should have been a good film. We also had Jerry Horner in it. She plays the mother for some unknown reason, and in one, I'm not gonna say why, but she's crying, and I think I've seen better acting in EastEnders or something like that. Genuinely, like, there's about 5 of us in the cinema. I just see Jerry Horner burst out crying. I'm trying so hard not to piss my pants. I'm doing everything to not burst out laughing at that moment. Because she's like got the fingers going, her eyes are gone. She's trying so hard, and it looks so unbelievably bad.
Maybe I do have to go and watch this.
Yeah, maybe I
Like-
should find someone to watch it.
Okay, I'd say that it's a good streaming film, but I wouldn't spend anything over a tenner to watch it, unless you want to purely watch it because it is so annoying at times.
So I just looked. Hungary isn't in any of the Gran Turismo games, from what I can see.
No,
At least use the
Hungary's
track
never-
that's in the game. Jesus.
annoying. And it's F1's fault as well. If I didn't like F1, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing. To the casual observer, they're not going to
It's
know the
like-
difference, are they?
Yeah,
It's
the
like
thing
Drive
I
to
think
Survive. They're not gonna know.
I
all the
think it's worse though,
inconsistencies.
because with the radio, you genuinely you don't know, do you? It's just a random radio.
Yeah.
With a track, when they're using one track and then cut like a minute, and then you're at a different track, you can sort of tell that it's different, even if you are a casual. You can tell something's up.
Well, a lot of the
'Cause at Le Mans-
characteristics of tracks are very different in terms of
Yeah,
just the surrounding edges of the track. Like the curbs can be different. We see it.
Like the gravel, like the pit
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
to the gravel traps. They've got sometimes got the flags on them. If it's like Hungary's flag, literally just 3 colours. So they do that.
But like you know you're in Albert Park when you go to Australia because the curbs are the colorway that they are. You know you're in Imola because the curbs have the Italian flag on them. You know you're in Silverstone because it's Silverstone. Like you can usually tell what kind of track you're at if you get shown a corner and some curbs.
yeah,
Again,
especially at
the
the Mans.
flags on the
Yeah, the Le Mans
Run off.
curbs are the French colours, red, white, and blue. So, yeah, that's going to be an awkward one, but still. I guess the studio didn't have the budget to pay for a Silverstone track
Yeah,
day.
but then just. But I feel like even when they done GT Academy, I think they done parts of it at Donington Park. So they could have just used that.
I vaguely
That would have been a
remember
lot
seeing
cheaper.
something there. Yeah.
It's either that or they used like the way to get into it was like a little event at Donington or something.
But yeah, I mean, you know,
Yeah, because
it's-
it'll probably take a couple days of renting out the place because filming takes a long time,
Mm.
and especially they've got to get all the right angles of the same car doing the same lap about 20 times, so it's gonna take a while.
Yeah. Or just create like a little white lie about it. Just be like, oh, we're not doing the GT Academy at Silverstone. We're doing it at Oldham Park or whatever.
Mm.
Like the casual's not gonna know. Don't say Silverstone and go to Hungary.
They could have said we're doing it at Hungary.
Yeah.
But well, you know, what I do
But other
find
than that-
funny is that the stunt driver for the main character is
Is
the
the
main character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, the interview is like, I'm the actor's name and I play Jan Mardenborough. I'm Jan Mardenborough and I play Jan Mardenborough stunt double.
It's like, huh? I mean, fair enough. They got the guy to do it, so you know it's like proper driving and stuff. But yeah,
The good thing about the film is when they show like the racing action in the film is probably one of the best. Like when they show the actual racing, probably one of the best racing films there is. It's just parts of the story don't hold up as much as they could, and the fact that they say certain tracks are certain
again,
tracks.
like, stories, like books and real life stories, they don't portray them well in films because you can only put so much into it.
I feel like with films based on real life, it's always going to be the the little differences that sort of pull you out of the story. And
Yeah.
it's anything that pulls you out of the story is going to detract from the overall film, because you're then becoming aware of the differences and not the story.
Yeah, but like real life, they've got to modify it somehow, because the way it pans out in real life doesn't always fit film. Like Rush, they said it portrayed them to be like mortal enemies, but they were friends off track. Like,
Yeah, but they sort of showed that at the end of Rush.
yeah, but then
The
like
airplane scene.
even during all the seasons they raced together, they were still friendly, not mortal enemies. It's like,
Yeah, it's like as hard as they raced on track, there's still a healthy respect
Yeah.
between the drivers off the track.
yeah, but like in film, it's quite hard to portray that unless you know the background of it. So
Yeah, because if you just went from them having like a massive wheel to wheel battle and then it getting all a bit
Right,
angry, and then do you want to come down to pub, mate? And then just them
Right.
joking and laughing about it, it would the casual viewer might be a bit confused. It's like, but they were just like hating each
Yeah.
other. So yeah,
Why do we appeal to casual viewers? Christ.
true. If you go like too realistic, too gritty, then it's just
boring, isn't
Yeah.
it?
it can get too expensive as well.
And with a lack of any actual decent Formula One news this week, that pretty much wraps us up for this week. I am just desperately scrolling through it just to see if there's anything. Leclerc said that Ferrari had to reset their targets for 2023 after the first race of the season.
That quick.
Mark Webber says only reliability problems can stop Verstappen breaking Vettel's record. I'd probably agree.
What, four on the bounce.
Most consecutive wins in a row. He's on the charge. Other than that, it's usual summer break stuff.
Dead
Yeah,
silence.
they haven't even announced what the AlphaTauri name's going to be next year.
I feel
What the
like they do that
Hugo Boss?
Oh, yeah. Hugo Boss. Whatever nonsense.
The favorite comment I saw from those TikToks that people were covering of like apparently it's gonna be like the Hugo Boss team, Toro Bosso.
Yeah.
That 10 out of 10 team name would be amazing. Needs to happen.
And here comes the Toro Boss.
Like, it would be so good.
They'll probably announce it after they've figured out their drivers for next year.
Yeah. One door closes, another one opens. Steiner backs Safnauer to move on pretty quick from Alpine exit. Good old Gunther. Verstappen says Norris's form is not a surprise after McLaren's quite incredible resurgence.
Well, after Gunther said that, it would be very, very funny if Safnauer took his job.
That would be quite funny. But I think there's a bit of illegal rumblings going on in the background of Haas, so I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
What do you
I don't know if Gene Haas wants to put up with Otmar Safnauer.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I don't know if Gene Haas wants to continue to put up with Formula One at this rate, but you know.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about it for this week, isn't it, guys?
I think so, yeah.
We'll be back next week with what
Maybe
should be. Yeah, please. We'll be back next week with the predictions for the Dutch Grand Prix. And hopefully the last 3 teams of the stats. So until then, thank you for listening and or watching, and goodbye.